Connor, appreciate you being here, my man. Excited to learn more about the International Dance League. But let's start with how this league got started. What was the moment or the driving force behind you wanting to build a new, innovative, professional dance league?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like obviously a lot of people are like, "Hey man, starting a league's pretty hard, kind of crazy. Why would you do that?" Well, for me, obviously, I started as a dancer. When I was 13 years old, I saw someone do windmills at a party, and I was like, "That's it, man. I gotta do that for the rest of my life." I ended up moving to LA, dancing with some of the best teams in the world, competing all around. But at a certain point, I had to stop because there was no future in competition dancing. And over the last 10 years. I actually dedicated my life to building Steezy, which is a leading app for online dance class. So I did that for about 10 years. And through that process, when I was looking at our most hardcore users, I realized something super interesting. One, I was generating massive amounts of viewership online for dance, right? Literally hundreds of millions of views annually. And all of those people were watching dance, yet there was no real like one singular platform for the best people to do what they do. Second, when I looked at the people that were the most hardcore users of my platform, they all look like 16-year-old versions of me.
Hmm.
They're all people who spent 20 hours a week in the studio, competed literally every single week. And I was looking at this and I was going, hey, this is really weird because you have this massive viewership for dance across all these social platforms, literally launching TikTok, right? You have this entire developmental pipeline of talent, just like any other major sport, right? People don't realize that dance is one of the top activities for youth because people always lump it into arts. But if you look at the activity next to other sports, you're like, wait, this is like top 10, right? And so when you looked at those two, you're like, it just doesn't make sense that there is no league. And so over the last, many years, we've been always playing around with this idea. And this year we're like, we got to do it, man. Like this is the year that we have to do it. And so we just kind of full sended it, and here we are.
I love it, man. And to that point, man, why do you think someone hasn't tried this before? And then when you say turn dance into a sport, what do you think needs to change from a ecosystem or infrastructure perspective in order for that to happen?
Yep. Great questions. Two parts to that, right? So the
Yeah.
first part, like, why has it not happened yet? And I think that's a great question, right? Because everyone's always like, hey man, this sounds amazing, almost like obvious, right? They're like, there's so much viewership for dance. Well, first, I think there is a league currently that has been developed in Japan, which is hyper local to Japan, called the D League. They've done a phenomenal job. They've been around for 3 years. But outside of them, there is no professional league specifically for like choreographed dancing because of two things. First, one, all the competitions that currently happen are essentially like amateur competitions. And amateur competitions make money from participation, right? And so they charge dancers to be there. So they're essentially selling time on stage. And so their incentives are to get as many people to sign up as possible, which does two things. One, it makes the event very, very long, right? And so if you're a fan, if you're watching all this dance online, you want to watch like your like the best dancers and you're like, I want to go to this event near me. It's really bad, right? Because anybody can be on this. So they're not investing back in dancers, they're not paying them. And so the prize pool is actually very, very low, right? So as a team, you might be spending a couple $1,000s to compete because they charge per person, and the grand prize will be $500.
Mm.
Right. And so you have this issue here where if you are very good, you're not going to go and compete at these competitions. So that's where there's a ceiling, right? So you might go competing at all these local events, but at a certain point, you're really good. You're like, I'm not going to do this anymore. So what do you do next? You end up on TV shows,
Mhm.
right? And so every network has a reality TV show, a competition series, as you will, about dance, and they do phenomenally, right? And not just now, like it's not a trend, it's like been around, right? You had America's Best Dance growing on MTV in the early 2000s, you had World Dance on NBC, and internationally, you have Street Dance in China, you have Street Woman Fighter in Korea. But the problem with that is those are talent shows, right? And by definition, they are always looking for new people and what's new and shiny, and they dramatize the whole thing. And could you imagine if the NBA were to fire their players every year and just be like, oh, we're just going to look for some new talent?
Yeah.
That doesn't make a lot of sense. So those are the two current metas, right? So those are two current metas. One is extracting value from the dancers, but not giving them back. And the other side, it's replacing them and treating them like talent. Yet the viewership is great, but those are the ways that they currently operate, and so that therefore, dance as a sport and a league has not been able to develop within those two kind of constraints. So that's the first question.
Yep.
Your second question, which was sorry, what was your second question again?
Second question was like, what from an ecosystem or infrastructure standpoint, like what needs to happen or change within this environment to get people to see it as not just a competition, but an actual sport and league?
Yeah. So the second question is, I think, back to like kind of like what I said as the problem of the amateur competitions, and it's paying the dancers and the
Mm,
talent. So dancers, like I said, train on average 20 to 30 hours a week. It's like a full-time job, right? These people are competing, they're training, they're in a studio all night to put on these sets and they're competing. But the payout, as I said, is like $500 grand prize, right? And so there's no longevity here. So what happens is all the best talent, even though they're all honed by competition, and that's what makes them the best, they have to look for other work. And that other work is either backup dancing for a choreographer or a dancer, an artist, or becoming a choreographer for said artist, or dancing on the sidelines for a major sports team, right? So, like you're a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader, for
yep.
example. And neither of those also pay very well. And so, as an industry, when you look at it, you're like, okay, cool. Like these kids, like millions of kids are going through this entire system, spending their entire lives learning how to dance, and that's the best that they can do, right? And so then there's no infrastructure kind of built behind it to support it from a sporting aspect, which is what we're changing.
Hmm. That makes complete sense. And can you kind of walk us through, like, for a fan who is interested in checking out the league, wants to learn more from a high level, what does the structure look like? How is the league, what is the team format? Like, what's that going to look like once the league is enacted and launched?
Yep. So I think for the first, a really easy way to understand the IDL is you can think of it like Formula One meets America's Best Dance Crew, right? So it's team choreography competitions where teams have 30-person rosters competing in a calendared season of events. So there's multiple tour stops where each of the pro teams come and compete. They score points until the end of the season where there's a championship, and then you have your season winner. There are currently only six pro teams that we have hand selected, which are the six best teams in the world. So these teams are not like random teams. They've literally have 22 championships across all those local events we talked about earlier. They've been on 14 different TV shows. Collectively, they've literally have 20 billion views under their belt. So they're massive fan base. They have legacy, infrastructure, fandom, all of that. Um, and so as a fan, what you can expect in a season is that we're doing six events, five regular season events, starting out in Hong Kong, Vancouver, New York, Sydney, Seoul, and then a finals in Los Angeles, where you'll get your grand winner.
Really cool. So you guys just closed a $7 million seed round, which congratulations. That's huge news. And a lot of the investor interest was from primarily sports focused funds, which I think is super interesting. Elysian Park, KV Partners, Apex, I believe. What were the conversations like? Did they get the vision right away?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think right now, I think the market currently in fundraising is there's a lot of obviously interest into sports, right? Especially with the rise of AI, everybody's like, oh, content's getting, overly saturated. Live is the only thing that's going to be special because what do we want? Do we want to really watch computers playing against each other? Like
Right.
that already exists and nobody really watches that. So I think more and more people are looking for obviously new IP and sports that you can be a part of. And I think what was interesting about what we're building here is as much as it's like new, it's also not new, right?
Mm,
Like dance has been around for so long. The market and the interest is there. It just hasn't been professionalized. And because the opportunity is that there is no current pro league in dance, I think that's the very exciting part about it is that we could be and will be the leader of this industry. And then when you look at like how the value accrues in all these sports, right? Like the NBA, the NFL, like if you are the league in your sport, then you obviously create tremendous value for not only the shareholders, people who invested in it, but obviously all the participants as well, right? Like look at the amazing things that happened to all these athletes over the last, 50 years or so.
yeah. You talked at the beginning about how challenging it is building something like this from the ground up. What would you say has been the most difficult part about laying the foundation and, trying to really just start something that's, and to your point, not necessarily new, but in this format that is novel and hasn't really been done before?
Yeah. So it's funny because I was talking to a couple of my other friends that do le other leagues and whatnot, and creating a league is kind of like creating a nation, right? Like there's just so many different constituents and people that you have to work with and appease in a lot of ways, right? Versus like I come from tech, right? My first company was we built an app, we were able to launch it and just get people excited about it, and that's like cool, it's like pretty straightforward. But I feel like when you're building a league, you have your pro teams, and you have the dancers and the players themselves, right? And in each of these people, obviously they have, their needs that you have to kind of fulfill and work with. Then you have like the sponsors and the partners that you're bringing on board, and then just like the operational part of like landing events internationally itself is not so simple, right? It's like literally taking your multi-million dollar production in one city and then moving it over 4 weeks into a completely different market, which provides its own challenges there. But luckily, we have obviously we've built an amazing team around us, and we work with some really crazy people. So it's been exciting.
Really cool. And obviously, at the end of the day, you gotta make money, you gotta drive revenue. So how are you guys thinking about revenue streams? What do you see? I mean, obviously like sponsorships, maybe ticketing, merchandise, all kind of factor in, but what do you see as like the overarching, like this is the primary, and then like looking down the list as far as prioritizing revenue streams?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at leagues, most of the revenue is pretty similar, right? Like you have media rights being the majority part of it. Then you have in some of the in some of the like older leagues, obviously ticketing was like
Yep.
very big. And then obviously with the new emerging leagues, sponsorship is the major portion of that. So we have a pretty similar makeup, sponsorship being pretty heavy in the early days. Then it's gonna be, ticketing and merchandise. And then long term, it's gonna be the media rights side. And so we're still following that format. But I think for us, when we think about that, your sponsorship and ticketing and everything at the end of the day is fully tied to fandom,
Mhm.
right? Like at the end of the day, you monetize what people are looking at, right? Like leagues are essentially media companies, and you have to be able to build a fandom. And we're very lucky to have massive followership already, just because the teams themselves, our hosts, everything, plus like the networks that we've built through Steezy, we already have over like 250 million followers, right? So compared to like other emerging leagues, we actually have more followers than most of them.
Yep.
So we're very fortunate in that respect. And so that allows us to kind of monetize from the partnership side much easier, and then prove that out much faster.
With that audience in mind, how are you guys thinking about leveraging some of the dancers, maybe their social media platforms and storytelling around the athletes? Like, is that a part of that strategy at all? Are you being intentional about like putting the dancers at the front of the league, similar to like how the NBA does in a way, and putting the players first? Is that something you guys are thinking about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, hey, that's the whole point of us doing this, right? Like, I think for me, it was always weird to me that you could be the best at what you do, and the best at what you do is being a backup dancer, right? Like that was like insane to me. And so that's essentially what the point of this league is to put shine on these amazing athletes, these dancers that have basically been curating everything you see from emotion. Like any type of motion design, whether it's like concerts, music videos, everything in pop culture that dance has ever touched are designed by the people in this league, right?
Mhm.
It's people that are literally doing everything behind the scenes. And now we're putting them at the forefront. So, of course, yeah, we are doing stories about them. There'll be like weekly content with them. We have entire series developed around them. We're doing like press conferences before and after the events. So, you will have this behind the scenes, really close, intimate view, and understanding why dance is a sport, right? The amount of effort it takes to do these things, the physicality of it, the strategy behind the way that these people compete, which is all really interesting.
And in the same instance or same kind of point, how are you guys putting how do the teams come together? Is this something like where, you have professional dancers who've been dancing for years, but maybe there's a guy on the street who's kind of been doing it, just because he has a passion for dance and wants to join a team? Like, what does that kind of look like from a collaboration standpoint, or like bringing new athletes and new dancers on board and into the league?
Yeah. So the first I think is explaining kind of like the teams and their relationship with the league, how we chose them and how they operate. So like I said, these six teams we chose them because of their fandom, legacy, and infrastructure, right? And so these teams are extremely popular. They've been operating for a long time, some of them multiple decades, where they have like their full like facilities and infrastructure. They have like full studios, like for example, 1 million out of South Korea. They have this like five-story studio where people literally fly into their studio. Like their lockers are full size, so you can put suitcases in there because
Wow.
that's how many people internationally go there to take classes from them. They do music video. They did the most recent music video for Blackpink. For Jump. So they're literally in all these different places. And they have like multiple competition team or just multiple teams like within their training system, right? So they have their students plus their professionals, which they kind of like manage and operate from like a hey, like this person needs choreography, we'll go ahead and like kind of manage them and book them out and things like that. So they already have kind of like all this infrastructure. So they're able to pull from their roster, as you will, an extended roster from students that are already kind of in their facilities. And this is mirrored across like multiple different teams, right? So that's like 1 million out of South Korea. You have this in GRV from Los Angeles. You have this from Brotherhood from Vancouver. But of course, some of these teams are also opening up their doors to bring in more talent because they want to expand outside of okay us as an entity, but now since we represent this city and this country because that's how our teams kind of operate, like Seoul, South Korea, like 1 million of Seoul, South Korea. You have Quick Style from Norway, right? And so they just actually held an audition where they actually opened up their doors to bring in more talent to just give more opportunity for the dancers in that area to be a part of this.
That's super cool. So in a way, it's kind of like how I guess youth development pipelines are in European football, where they have like the youth that goes through the program, and maybe they played as a kid and then they can make it all the way up to the pros. So same kind of thinking process or infrastructure in that way, right?
Yeah, so that's actually how studios operate internationally as well as in the US,
That's
right? And so
cool.
what you have is you have these dance studios where you have your recreational team, right? Or recreational students. And so it's people who are just having fun, taking class, but then there's always a competition team, right? And the competition team actually drives everything. And some of these studios have multiple competition teams, right? So they have like their youth team, they have their youth plus like teen team and their adult team and then like training teams all in between. And so like as a developing kind of talent, you kind of go through this system where, for example, like GRV in Los Angeles, right? They have like seven different teams. You'll start off on their youth team and then you get up to their pro team, which is now part of the IDL.
That's cool, man. Really cool. Obviously you said you come from the tech world. So how do you think about technology, data, even live streaming playing a role in the league and building that overall interactive like fan experience?
Yeah, so we think about that a lot because that's kind of like my background. One of the really cool things I think about dance is that the fan interaction is part of it, right? I think like if you even think to like the most like commercialized way of you think about dance, like Step Up, right? Like you always imagine, these crews and like club, facing off against each other and then people going crazy and like giving each other props and whatnot. I think that's where the culture kind of comes from. And so we actually capture that in fan vote. So as much as there's like, this bracket system where there's like, 10 categories that you're judged by these professional pros, one of the points that you get in each of the rounds actually comes from the fan vote, right? And so we actually have that implemented across the entire system. So as teams are competing against each other, the fans who are watching have like a 60-second clock where they can vote on who they think did better based on the categories that we provide. And so they're all kind of part of the process. And right, so linking those in, creating accounts for those people and starting to build that infrastructure where it's not just like fandom spectatorship, but actually fandom engagement is how we think about building this league for the future. Because Gen Z is not just like here to say, hey, we just want to be, shoved content in our faces. They want to be part of the
Yep.
community. They want to be part of like the teams and they want to be part of the league. And so that's how we're building this.
Really good insight. You talked about the cities that you all were targeting to start. What do you think are some of the maybe underrated markets or markets, where dance, has a lot of upside and potential that you guys are maybe targeting in the future?
In the future. Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity in the Middle East, in
Mm,
that area. So we kind of did a little tour around the areas, spoken to like different kind of teams. There's a lot of interest, I think, in that part of the market. But the infrastructure is not fully there yet for a lot of those teams because they don't have the same level of competitions that we have. It's the typical like, local amateur competitions that try to come in and take advantage of that area. So they don't have a lot of that, but the interest is very, very high, right? Because highly, lots of youth in the area, which is generally our audience. And so we think that those are definitely markets that we would expand into over time in seasons 2 and 3.
got you. Obviously there are tons of new emerging leagues. I think it's a really exciting period in the world of sports. What advice would you give to someone else who's looking to maybe build an emerging league and kind of doesn't know where to start or how to build and scale, something that they're passionate about or see an opportunity in?
Yeah. Well, I think the first one is like truly understanding your differentiation. I think there's a lot, it's pretty choppy out there, right? There's a lot going on, there's a lot of movement. um and like competition is hard, right? Like you have to beat out all these different eyeballs. Like you're competing against every other emerging league as well as the established leagues, especially for sponsorship dollars. And so, really understanding your differentiation of like what it is that you're providing as well as the fan base that you're bringing, right? Like so for the IDL, for example, like we are a co-ed league, right? Which doesn't really exist for most sports, as well as the fact that our audience is like 60% female. So we have a really, really strong kind of Gen Z kind of like, co-ed audience that is very different from like your traditional sports. And that gives us our edge, right? And it's like, hey, look, this is an audience that brands want to tap into, that want to be a part of. It's a different type of community. So I think it's going to be figuring that out for you and your sport ultimately. And then everything else is, just hard as that is. But there's people, of course, that do that. And so you can always find people to help you in those things, but you as a founder and understanding your community, your audience, your fans, only you can understand that the best. And so you're gonna have to get that really right before you get anything else done.
It's amazing advice. Last couple questions, looking 5, 10 years down the road, what does success look like for you in IDEO?
Yeah. I think that dance could actually be like a top 5 sport in the world. I think the viewership is fully there. I think the tailwinds are supporting us in that. And I think just in our early success, you can already see kind of the fandom growing in that level. So for us is really expanding out everything that we're doing beyond the 6 teams, expanding franchises eventually into 12. And then of course, I think for me, the Michael Jordan of dance is going to show up. And I think it's going to be because of the platform that we're building today. And that's what I want to see. I want to see athletes, dancers, on billboards getting, multi-million dollar endorsements, where, little kids are looking up to them and saying, that's what I want to be. I want to be a pro dancer one day. And that as a career path is something that's worth kind of going after. And so I'm grateful for all the athletes that kind of work with us right now. I'm grateful for our teams that taking on this mission, but that's what we're doing.
I love it, man. Incredible vision. Lastly, can you let people know where they can learn more about IDEO as well as connect with you?
Yeah, yeah. You can find us on ideal.pro. That's our website, which you can get all of our socials and updates on the season. And you can email us there.
Thanks, Connor. Appreciate the time, my man.
All right, thank you.